You can feel it right now. The season ending doesn't just sting, it forces reality to set in. And for the San Francisco 49ers, this offseason isn't just another reset. This is one of those moments that defines where a franchise is headed. You're no longer talking about small tweaks or running it back and hoping things break your way. You're talking about foundational decisions that will determine whether this team stays in the contender conversation or slowly slips behind the rest of the NFC West. And that's why this offseason feels different, because the warning signs are no longer subtle. When you step back and look at where the 49ers are, you can see a team caught between what it used to be and what it needs to become. There's still talent on this roster, still star power, still a quarterback who can win games when he's put in the right position. But there are also glaring cracks that were exposed when the lights were brightest. The end of the season didn't just close a chapter. It opened a list of uncomfortable questions that can't be ignored anymore. And whether you like it or not, those questions start at the top and ripple all the way through the roster. This is why the offseason matters more than ever. Every move, every decision, every philosophy choice now has consequences. You're not just trying to get better, you're trying to catch up to division rivals who are younger, faster, and more adaptable. That reality should frustrate you as a fan, but it should also excite you, because this is the moment where bold changes can actually reset the trajectory of the franchise. Standing still is no longer an option. Before we dive deeper, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Do you believe this is the most important offseason of the Kyle Shanahan era? Yes or no? Drop that in the comments, because how you answer that says a lot about how to view the future of this team. And if you're locked in on daily, no-nonsense 49ers coverage all off-season long, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are turned on. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps make that happen. Also, if you think major changes are unavoidable this offseason, hit that like button so more Niners fans see this conversation. Now, everything we're about to talk about starts with one issue that has quietly grown into the biggest problem on this team. It's the flaw that unraveled the offense, exposed the scheme, and put the quarterback in survival mode. And once you really understand how bad it's gotten, you'll see why fixing it isn't optional anymore. Once you strip away the excuses and the emotion, everything keeps circling back to the same problem, and it's one the 49ers have tried to sidestep for years. The offensive line is no longer just a weakness, it's the issue that breaks everything else. Against Seattle, it wasn't just that the line struggled, it was that it got flat out overwhelmed, and that game should have been the final wake-up call. When a defense can generate pressure at nearly a 50% rate while barely blitzing, that tells you everything you need to know. That's not a quarterback problem, and it's not a skill position problem. That's a trench problem. You saw it play out snap after snap. Brock Purdy barely had time to set his feet, let alone let routes develop downfield. The pocket collapsed almost immediately, forcing him to move, reset, and improvise just to survive. And when a quarterback starts feeling phantom pressure, even on clean snaps, that's when an offense loses its rhythm entirely. This wasn't Purdy running into pressure. This was pressure meeting him at the top of his drop over and over again. No scheme in the world can survive that against elite defenses. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because at some point the responsibility shifts to Kyle Shanahan. For years, the belief has been that the system can mask offensive line deficiencies. That quick game, that motion, that timing-based passing attack would be enough. But history keeps repeating itself. Against the best defenses in the biggest games, that philosophy falls apart. Short yardage situations become a nightmare. Quarterback sneaks disappear. Trust in the interior offensive line vanishes. And suddenly, the offense that looks unstoppable in spurts becomes completely toothless. Richard Sherman nailed it when he said if you can't move them, you can't beat them. That's not just about one game or one opponent. That's about building a team with a clear identity. If Seattle is the measuring stick in this division, then the 49ers have to construct an offensive line capable of physically imposing its will on that front. Do that and everything else opens up. Fail to do it and you'll keep seeing the same ending, no matter who's under center. Let me know where you stand on this. Do you believe the offensive line is the #1 priority this offseason? Yes or no? And in the comments, name one spot on that line you think absolutely has to be upgraded. If you agree this unit needs a full overhaul, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We're grinding toward 1,000 subscribers, and this offseason is going to be loaded with breakdowns just like this. Because once you accept that the offensive line is the foundation, the next question becomes even more important. Even if you fix the protection, does this offense still scare anyone anymore? That's where things get really interesting. And that question matters because protection alone doesn't fix what you've been seeing from this offense. Even when Brock Purdy has had time this year, something has still felt missing. The 49ers offense used to stress defenses horizontally and vertically at the same time. Now, defenses sit back, keep everything in front of them, and wait for mistakes. That tells you everything. This unit has lost its explosiveness and maybe even more concerning, it's lost its speed. Against Seattle, the wide receivers were essentially invisible. No separation, no fear factor, no reason for the defense to adjust its approach. When corners can squat on routes and safeties don't have to worry about getting beat over the top, pressure becomes easy. That's why Seattle didn't need a blitz. They knew the ball wasn't going anywhere dangerous. And if we're being honest, that problem has been building for a while now. This offense has gotten older, slower, and more predictable, and in today's NFL, that's a death sentence. This is why adding speed and big play ability has to be just as important as fixing the offensive line. You need players who force defenses to respect every blade of grass. Someone like Alec Pierce immediately changes how secondaries line up. He's not just a big body, he's a legitimate vertical threat who can win downfield and make contested catches. That kind of presence stretches coverage and creates space underneath, something this offense desperately needs. You saw firsthand what he can do, and those numbers don't lie. Consistent chunk plays, improved hands, and real touchdown production. Then there's Rashid Shaheed, a different kind of weapon, but just as dangerous. Pure speed, the kind that makes defenders hesitate and coordinators lose sleep. You don't even need him to be a number one option. You need him to tilt coverage, to punish teams for playing soft, and to turn simple touches into explosive gains. Right now, the 49ers don't have anyone who does that consistently. And that's a massive problem when you're trying to keep defenses honest. Kyle Pitts might be the most fascinating option of all. He's not a traditional tight end, and that's exactly why he's intriguing. Used correctly, he's a matchup nightmare. A tight end in name only, but a wide receiver in how he threatens defenses. Paired with Brock Purdy's timing and anticipation, you can see the vision. This offense needs to evolve, not abandon its identity, but modernize it with speed, athleticism, and unpredictability. So I want to hear from you. Which offensive weapon would make the biggest impact on this team right away? Drop a name in the comments. And do you think this offense has lost its explosiveness? Yes or no? If that answer is yes, make sure you're subscribed because we're going to be tracking every rumor, every free agency move, and every draft target all offseason long. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support keeps this coverage rolling. Because while the offense grabs most of the headlines, there's another side of the ball that might actually be closer than people think. But it still comes with some big questions that can't be ignored. That's what makes the defense such an interesting part of this conversation. On the surface, it feels like the unit is closer to being fixed than the offense, but once you dig in, you realize how much hinges on the next few decisions. Talent-wise, there's still a foundation here. You're getting Fred Warner back anchoring the middle, and he's still the standard at the linebacker position. Nick Bosa changes games by himself when he's right, and just his presence alters how offenses call plays. Those two alone give you a defensive core most teams would kill for. There were also real positives from the younger players as the season went on. You could see growth along the defensive line, especially from guys who looked overwhelmed early and started to settle in once the game slowed down for them. That matters because it tells you this isn't a tear-down situation. This is a refinement situation. But refinement only works if the coaching and structure around it are right, and that's where the biggest question sits. Who is running this defense next season? That decision is massive because it dictates scheme, identity, and how these players are ultimately used. Even with solid pieces in place, the holes are obvious. The pass rush can't rely on one player. There has to be more consistent pressure, especially in key moments. Next to Fred Warner, the linebacker spot has been a revolving door, and that instability shows up against both the run and the pass. At corner, having one reliable option isn't enough anymore. Teams will hunt mismatches until you prove you can hold up on the outside. And the safety position, especially in coverage, has been a glaring weakness. Too many busted assignments, too many plays allowed over the top, too many moments where the back end simply didn't communicate. This is where I want to bring you into the conversation. If you had to pick one defensive position to upgrade immediately, what would it be? Linebacker, corner, pass rush, or safety? Drop your answer in the comments, because how you answer that says a lot about what you think this defense is missing most. And if you're locked in for every defensive coordinator update, every roster move, and every draft breakdown, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and this is where the offseason chess match really starts. But as important as these roster discussions are, there's a bigger, more uncomfortable topic looming over all of it. Because at some point, the conversation has to shift from the players on the field to the people making the decisions. And that's where things get controversial. And this is where the offseason conversation turns from football strategy to organizational accountability. Because you can talk about roster holes and coaching decisions all day, but eventually you have to ask who is responsible for putting the team in this position. The idea of a front office change is uncomfortable, and for some fans, it feels almost unthinkable. John Lynch is well respected. He's been part of winning teams, and this era has produced deep playoff runs. That matters. But respect and past success don't mean immunity from criticism, especially when patterns start to repeat. When you compare the 49ers to the rest of the NFC West, the gap is hard to ignore. Seattle and Los Angeles have managed to reset without collapsing. They've injected youth, speed, and depth into their rosters while staying competitive. Meanwhile, the 49ers have struggled to consistently hit on top draft picks and free agent signings. There have been blue chip successes, no question about it, but there have also been too many misses. And over time, those misses add up, leaving a roster that feels thinner, older, and less explosive than the teams you're chasing. This isn't about tearing everything down. It's about recognizing that being good isn't good enough anymore. Being the third best front office in your own division is a problem, no matter how you spin it. Contract decisions, roster construction, and long-term planning all matter more now than ever, especially with a quarterback you believe in and a window that's still open if you act decisively. Standing pat is how windows quietly close. Then there's the issue that overshadows everything else: health. Injuries are no longer bad luck. When the same team is near the top of the injury list year after year, something is wrong. Whether it's training methods, recovery processes, strength and conditioning leadership, or even facility-related concerns, it has to be addressed. This is a multi-billion-dollar organization, and investing in player health is not optional. If changes need to be made behind the scenes, they have to be made, no matter how uncomfortable those decisions might be. So here's the question I want you to think about. Do you believe the 49ers need a front office shakeup to get back to the top? Yes or no? And do you think injuries are the biggest long-term threat to this team's success? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is where opinions are going to differ. And if you've stuck with me this far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and this offseason is going to be critical for this franchise.